Hi everybody and welcome back to 2BeLikeChrist. Do you know the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? If not, let me give you the quick summary. There were three young men who lived in the city of Babylon, and these three young men were Jews, which meant that they were only allowed to worship the one true God, Jehovah. But in the story, the king of Babylon creates an idol, and he makes a command to everyone in his kingdom that they have to bow down and worship his idol. Uh-oh. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were living at peace, and now the story has taken a turn for the worse. They've been asked to do something that violates their conscience and God's law. Now they have a choice to make. They can either be obedient to the king's command, or they can disobey and perhaps get in trouble. And if you know the story, you know what they do. They choose not to bow down to the idol. And I'm sure that was really uncomfortable, especially when everyone else around them was bowing down and they're the only ones standing up. And we might think, well, they've endured this temptation. Certainly God will step in now for the people who are faithful to him and make sure this situation doesn't get out of hand or get any worse. But that's not exactly what happens. After this, the story takes another turn for the worse, because not only did they have to go through this, but in addition, some of the men of the city of Babylon tattled to the king about what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had done. And you might think, well, that's unfortunate, but certainly God will step in here and keep this from getting out of hand. No. The story takes another turn for the worse, and not only are they going to get in a little bit of trouble with the king, but he threatens to kill them if they don't go back outside and worship his idol. And you might be back over on this side thinking, oh, well, certainly God will step in here. You know, they've gone through enough. He'll come in and rescue his faithful followers from being killed by the king. But back on this side, the story takes another turn for the worse. And Nebuchadnezzar does not relent, and he doesn't feel very merciful today. And so he says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because you will not bow down to my idol, I'm throwing you into the burning fiery furnace. And not only that, but I'm going to heat the burning fiery furnace up 7 times hotter than the way it usually is, just so you can suffer even more. So you find yourself back over here thinking, certainly this is where God steps in. These three young men have felt the heat of temptation, pun intended, and they've been refined by it. Certainly God will step in now and save them from being tossed into the burning fiery furnace. But the story takes another turn for the worse, and Nebuchadnezzar throws these three young men into the fiery furnace. And that's the end of the story. No, just kidding. That wouldn't be a very good story. I can count at least 5 times when this story went from bad to worse. They were required to do something that violated their faith. Then they got tattled on by their peers. Then they got drugged before the king of a country. And then, number 4, Nebuchadnezzar heated up the fiery furnace 7 times hotter than it usually was. And then they got tied up and thrown in. You ever been in a situation like that, where things just seem to go from bad to worse? And all along that way, as I imagine Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were doing, they were praying for deliverance. Have you ever been in a rough spot in life, and the first time it went bad, you prayed and thought God would deliver you, but it just seemed to get worse, and it happened again, took another turn for the worse, and then another, and then you begin to doubt whether God is actually listening to you. And you begin to doubt that he can save you or that he will save you. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had all these reasons to doubt that God was coming to save them, and yet they remained firm in their faith. And in the end, if you know the story, God didn't show up to save them until they were actually in the flames. And God shows up there, and you remember that they walk back out of that fire unburned. They don't even smell like smoke because of the salvation of the Lord. So if you're in currently, or you ever find yourself in a situation that seems to escalate in the wrong direction at a very rapid pace, and after turn and turn and turn for the worst, you find yourself in despair, remember this: those turns for the worst had absolutely no impact on the potency of God's remedy for the situation. This should give us hope, and this should give us confidence in the faithfulness of God, that there is no situation, there is no turn for the worse that God cannot get us out of. Thanks everybody for watching. If you want to go back and review the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel chapter 3, that's in the Old Testament. He's one of the prophets. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that. We are almost at 1,500 subscribers, which I'm super excited about. Thank you everybody who has interacted and subscribed and commented and liked the videos. Continue to do that, please, and share them with anyone who you may think could benefit from them. and I will see you guys in the next one.